Is this hot tent puncture resistant? Let's find out. That would make no sense whatsoever. Today's review is the Pomoly Stovehut 70 hot tent. We're going to cover the setup, the features, pros and cons, and who should buy this tent. We'll dive in right now and start to go over the setup. So as you can see, all in all, it's fairly easy to set up. It has quite a few tie-outs. I would say that's one of the cons that goes against it. Some of those extended flaps of fabric that are supposed to block wind kind of make it a little more difficult than needed. I don't know how much they actually help. So that's just one of the con features, I would say, counting against the tent. So let's jump back in and show more of the features close up and talk about some of the pros and cons. The atrium for the stove can be used with or without the chimney. It can be folded down when not in use and rolled up like this when it is in use. It's a good area to keep your wood dry. If you're not using the wood stove, you can also store your gear. Just put down a tarp there if it was wet out. All in all, it's a good little area for storage and convenient for the wood stove. All right, let's talk about the pros and cons and what stands out with this tent. Obviously, it's a hot tent, so it's for season. That's why I bought it. I wanted to have something I could use in the winter that I could put a stove in and could extend the camping season. I think snow camping in winter is the best time to get out. There's no bugs, there's no people, so that's a huge plus. The roll-up bug screen you can see here anchors securely. You have those 3 tie-outs. That makes it quick and easy to roll it up, stash it out of the way when not in use, or you can leave it down and just keep the canopy open. Size-wise, you can see laying down, I'm about 5'11", so it's just over 6 feet. You have room to fully stretch out. I think it's about 7 feet, somewhere around there. And it says it's a 2-person. I've slept in this with 2 people, and it was definitely tight, especially with your bags and your gear. I'd say best overall is probably 1 person or 1 person and a dog. For me and my dog Falcor, it works great. He's got his room for his bed. I can keep my bag and all my gear inside, and I've got room to fully stretch out. Obviously, having a wood stove, that is probably the biggest pro of this tent. You can see I can reach wood laying down. I don't even have to get up. The downside, obviously, is if you stoke the fire too hot, it's just gonna be blasting all that heat to the upper half of your body if you keep your head on that end. If your feet get cold, you keep your feet at that end. I just like having it close by so I can reach in, grab wood in the middle of the night as that little stove goes out, get it going again and stay warm. Another big plus for the hot tent with that wood stove is just having that ambient light and kind of that relaxing atmosphere that it puts off. Additionally, that atrium area holds quite a bit of wood, a good spot to keep it dry, out of the wind, out of the elements. You can also put gear there. Another cool feature that I really like about hot tents is you can cook right on the stove. I mean, especially in this tent, I can just reach over, have my food going, and hang out, relax in the tent, let it cook, and I can just eat right there. I don't have to bring additional gear to cook and boil. When I'm out in the winter, I usually melt snow and use that as my drinking water, and I can do it all on that stove, so I don't have to bring in extra equipment. Probably the coolest feature of this tent and what made it stand out to me to buy is that little front porch. I just thought that was unique. I really like having a shelter that opens up and cascades to the woods or wherever I'm camping. You can take in the view, and I mean, that's the whole point of being out there, is to have a nice view and be in the middle of the woods. I feel like that lifted up awning allows you to just take everything in. It's also a good ventilation system to let in cool air if you get the stove too hot. And it acts as a nice porch. You can hang out under it, you can cook your meals if it's raining. It's just an additional tarp, so it's kind of a 2-in-1 like on this tent. You get the view, you get some rain cover, and it's just all around kind of a unique tent. So next feature is that it has a full bathtub floor. That just seals off everything. For me, I like that. I've had a few hot tents that are completely open to the snow. There's pros and cons going both ways. Now that bottom floor is not completely waterproof. If you leave that out, you do need a ground sheet. They do sell one. I just used a piece of Tyvek because it's cheap. You can usually find it for free at job sites. You definitely need a ground barrier in between there, something that's impermeable, because it will soak through. The rest of the tent is completely waterproof. I've had 0 issues. I left it out in the rain and snow for probably about a month testing it in my yard, and I had 0 issues. I know previous versions did have some leaking issues, but I've had 0 on this tent. So size and price is a definite feature. It's really not that heavy. You can backpack in with it. It's for a long trip, it's probably a bit much, but all in all, it's not too bad. The price is outstanding on this though. For an entry-level hot tent, if you want to get into it, I mean, it's very affordable. That's why I bought it. It was my first hot tent. I wasn't sure if I'd enjoy it, so I wanted something cheap, but that would last. I didn't want to just throw away my money. Now let's talk about the cons. There definitely are a few cons. The first is the zippers. The zippers are horrible on this. When you're trying to drop down that awning, unless you guide it with your finger and keep that layover fabric from binding up in it, it just gets snagged repeatedly. That is the one thing that drives me crazy on this tent. It can be a nightmare. So just being up front, the zippers themselves work fine. They guide back and forth, no problem, but you have to keep that overlaying fabric. Similar to in a lot of sleeping bags, as you're trying to zip it up at night, the fabric folds in, gets caught in the zipper, at least ones I have. Same thing happens on this, so as long as you guide it with your finger and keep that flap clear, you're fine. The zips on the mesh netting for both doorways and for the netting coming around through the porch, really no problem there. It's just that outer fabric when it gets caught up. Like I mentioned before, tie outs, seems like there's just a few too many with those extra windscreen flaps, so not a big deal. And on this, it tends to, I think you can see in the pictures, it tends to get a little bit of sag there in the middle. You put those bracing poles up and you pull them out, but as that fabric gets stretched, it could be because I loaded mine very heavy with snow on top, and I think it stretched the material a little bit, but not a big deal, just probably more aesthetics than anything. Also, the heat dissipates rather quickly out of this. Any kind of nylon tent, it's gonna do that. It's gonna rapidly escape. So really, unless you have canvas or heat reflective material, it's gonna dissipate and gather up at the roof, up at that peak, so something to consider. Lastly, should you buy this tent? Who is it for? After using this for about 2 years, I can definitely recommend this tent. It's affordable. Like I said, that's one of the biggest reasons. It's kind of unique in that it has that porch type system, kind of gives you a tarp tent all in one. It's really an affordable route to get into this activity. So whether it's for a beginner or someone who's been doing this for a long time, I still really enjoy this. I've got a few other hot tents that are bigger and built up more. Some are heavier, some are lighter. But for what I paid, it's fun, it's easy, it gets you out there. So I would say if you're interested, check it out. There's a lot of other reviews out there. So I hope this review was helpful for you guys. That way you can get out, see what options there are, see if it's for you. I'll put a link in the description below if you guys want to check it out. Like I said, all in all, a good tent, can't go wrong. So either way, until next time, get out and have an adventure.